I was standing at the stove, stirring the pot of pasta sauce, trying to get dinner ready before everyone exploded again. Brooke hovered behind me like she always did. Loud, restless, annoyed that I existed. I felt her breath on my neck as she said, "Move. You're taking too long, Harper." Her tone already had venom, but I tried to keep peace. "I'm almost done," I said softly. "Mom said she wanted it ready by 7. Brooke laughed, low and sharp. "You think Mom cares about what you cook? Please, you just want to show off. Harper makes the best sauce, right?" She mocked my voice, making it high and stupid. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." I kept stirring. I'd learned not to react. Any reaction was fuel. Dad stomped through the kitchen behind us, grabbed a beer, and didn't even look at me. "If she messes up dinner," he muttered to Brooke, "we can always order something real." Brooke giggled like she had just been crowned queen. "Exactly. She tries too hard. It's pathetic." I swallowed hard. It always blew my mind how they could insult me while I cooked their dinner with my burnt hands, my tired back, my paycheck buying all the ingredients. But that night they took it farther than they ever had. I reached for a wooden spoon I'd washed earlier, but Brooke blocked my hand. She put her palm on the counter and leaned in, glaring. "Why'd you wash this? You're so dramatic, like you're running a restaurant." "It was dirty," I said quietly. She smirked. "Everything about you is dirty." I turned back to the stove because arguing was pointless. That's when she did it. Quick, sudden, purposeful. She grabbed the small pot of boiling water I had just taken off the burner, lifted it with both hands, and poured a stream of scalding water down my right arm from elbow to wrist. My scream tore out of me before I could stop it. The pain hit like fire digging under my skin. My knees buckled, and I dropped the spoon on the floor. Brooke just stood there, smiling. Actually smiling, like she had been waiting for this moment. "Oops," she whispered, her voice dripping with joy. "Maybe next time you won't try to take center stage." "Brooke!" I gasped, clutching my arm, skin turning red and bubbling. "What is wrong with you?" She shrugged like she had dropped a napkin. "You shouldn't stand so close to hot things if you're this clumsy." Mom walked into the kitchen right then, saw me on the floor shaking, saw the water dripping from the pot still in Brooke's hands, saw my skin blistering, yet her face didn't twist in fear or concern. She smiled. "You're screaming like a child," she said. "It's a little burn. Get over it." Then, like she wanted Brooke to hear her clearly, "Maybe burns will stop you from trying to outshine your sister." Dad leaned against the doorway, took a sip of beer, and added without blinking, "She thinks cooking dinner earns her a trophy. Now she'll think twice before showing off." My arm throbbed brutally and my breath kept cutting in half. "I need ice," I begged. "Please, just help me." Brooke walked past me and nudged me with her foot. "If you want ice so bad, crawl to it." Mom snorted. "Serves you right. Maybe next time you'll stay in your lane." I looked up at them, these people who raised me, who were supposed to love me, laughing, leaning on counters, watching me writhe on the tile like some animal. Something in my chest cracked, not from pain, but from realization. They weren't my family. They were my captors. I finally forced myself up, pushed through the pain, and reached the freezer. Brooke made a fake gagging sound when I passed her. "Acting like she's in a hospital drama," she muttered. Mom leaned close and whispered in my ear, "You want to be better than Brooke? You'll never be. Not in this house." Dad clapped his hands once like he was calling a dog. "Get back to cooking when you're done crying. We're hungry." My burned skin pulsed, each heartbeat sending a new wave of agony up my arm, but my anger cut through it like a blade. I held the ice to my blistering skin and slowly lifted my head. Brooke smirked again, waiting to see me break, but all she saw was something else, a spark she had never seen before. Because in that moment, I realized something they had never expected. I wasn't going to cry on their floor again. I wasn't going to beg again. I wasn't going to take another insult, another shove, another burn. They lit the fire, but I was going to be the one who burned everything down, and not in a poetic way, in a real, concrete, devastating way they would never recover from. For the next 2 days, the burn on my arm throbbed non-stop. I wrapped it in gauze I bought myself because Mom said, "If you baby it too much, you'll start thinking you're sick. You're fine." Brooke passed me in the hallway every few hours just to say things like, "Let me know if the other arm needs a matching one," or "Maybe next time don't try to be the princess of the kitchen." I ignored her because I had to, but every time she smirked, the plan in my head grew sharper. Dad was the worst. He didn't even try to pretend he wasn't enjoying it. That evening, when I walked into the living room to retrieve my phone charger, he looked at my bandaged arm and said, "Stop staring at it. You're making us lose our appetite." Brooke laughed from the couch. "It actually looks better like that. Less skin, more personality." Mom didn't tell them to stop. She only added, "You brought this on yourself, Harper. You're always trying to compete." Compete? With Brooke? Brooke who hadn't worked a job longer than 2 months? Brooke who still asked Mom to fill out her bank deposit slip? Brooke who failed her driver's test 3 times? If anyone competed, it was them competing to break me down daily. I sat in my room that night, door locked, arm throbbing, and finally opened my notebook where I kept every cruel thing they ever said to me, every humiliation they made me swallow. I never intended to use it for anything. I wrote it because I had no one to talk to. But as I flipped through the pages, I realized something. This wasn't a journal. This was evidence. The next morning, Brooke barged into my room without knocking because boundaries didn't apply to her. She tossed a handful of dirty clothes at me. "Mom said you're doing laundry today. Put mine separate. My stuff is nicer than yours." Her stuff was literally from thrift stores, but sure. I stood up. "I'm not doing your laundry." Brooke's eyebrows lifted, and she smiled like she just found a new toy. "Excuse me?" "I'm not doing it," I repeated. She took a step toward me. "Say that again. I want to hear you get brave right before I break something." Her voice was low, dangerous, the same tone she used before she dragged me down the stairs once when I was 14. I felt that fear again, rising in my throat, but I swallowed it. "I'm not doing your laundry," I said for the 3rd time. Slower. Brooke stared at me, then lunged, but this time I moved first. I stepped aside, letting her stumble forward. She crashed into my dresser, knocking over my lamp. From downstairs, Mom yelled, "Harper! Stop attacking your sister! What is wrong with you?" Brooke pointed at me, fake tears already forming. "She pushed me!" "She did not," I snapped. Mom stormed up the stairs, Dad behind her. "You think you can put hands on my favorite child and get away with it?" Carl barked. My eyes went wide. "She tried to grab me!" Mom crossed her arms. "Why would she do that? What reason would she have? You're always dramatic." Then she turned to Brooke and stroked her hair like Brooke was a toddler. "She's jealous of you, honey. That's all." Brooke leaned her head onto Mom's shoulder, smirking at me behind her back. Mom said, "Apologize to her." I stared at all of them, the burns on my arm, the bruises forming from bumping into the counter, the 3 faces twisted with hatred they thought I deserved. "No," I whispered. Dad stepped forward. "What did you say?" I stood straighter. "I said no." The room froze for half a second. Then, Mom slapped me across the cheek so hard my vision flickered. "Don't you ever raise your voice at us," she snapped. "I didn't raise my voice," I said through my teeth. Brooke clapped her hands like it was entertainment. "Guys, let me handle her. I'll teach her how to behave." That did it. Something snapped in me so cleanly it felt like the cracking sound was inside my bones. I took a step back, then another, gripping the notebook behind me like it was armor. I heard Mom continuing her rant, Dad muttering insults like, background noise, Brooke saying she would fix my attitude, but their voices had become far away. Because at that moment, I made the decision. I wasn't going to escape quietly. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to heal, forgive, and move on. No, I was going to bring every law, every consequence, every authority, every shred of evidence onto this house like a tidal wave. They liked burns. They were about to feel heat they couldn't walk away from. That night, while they slept peacefully, knowing they had put me in my place, I sat in my room with my laptop, my notebook, and the shaking determination of someone who has lost everything and therefore has nothing left to fear. I typed emails, filed digital reports, uploaded pictures of my burns, attached the audio files I'd been accidentally recording on my phone for months when I kept forgetting to stop the voice memo after arguments, sent them to agencies I had sworn I would never involve. But they deserved it now. Every humiliation, every bruise, every burn, every laugh. The house was quiet, too quiet, while I built the storm that would crush them. When I pressed submit on the final report, my hands were shaking, not from fear, from anticipation, because this wasn't poetic revenge. This was legal. This was structural. This was unstoppable. They thought Brooke's boiling water hurt me. They had no idea what the real burn would feel like. I barely slept after sending the reports. My arm burned, my cheek stung, but it didn't matter. By sunrise, I was already awake, sitting on the edge of my bed, fully dressed, bag packed, notebook inside. At 7:12 a.m., the first car pulled up, a government-issued sedan, then another behind it, and another. By 7:16 a.m., 3 officers were stepping onto our porch. I didn't have to wake my parents. The moment the doorbell rang, Mom yelled from her room, "Harper, answer that! God, you're useless!" I didn't move. The officers rang again. Dad stormed out of his bedroom, irritated, until he saw uniforms through the glass. His whole posture shifted. "Who the hell?" He opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" The lead officer spoke calmly. "We are responding to multiple reports regarding assault, domestic abuse, and endangerment filed last night." Dad blinked like he didn't understand English. Then his eyes darted toward me over the officer's shoulder. Mom pushed past him. "There must be a mistake. This is a good home. We have no problems here." Brooke finally appeared behind them wearing one of Dad's old t-shirts, messy hair, annoyed. "Why is the police here? Did Harper screw up again?" The officer looked directly at her. "You Brooke Walker?" She smirked. "Why? You want an autograph?" The officer didn't smile back. "We have photographic evidence, audio recordings, and written statements that you assaulted your sister with boiling water." Brooke's face dropped so fast it was almost silent. Dad exploded. "Harper, what did you do?" Mom grabbed his arm. "Stop yelling. They'll think we're guilty." "They don't need to think," I said quietly from the stairs. "They have proof." They all turned toward me. Brooke's face twisted. "You little—" The officer raised a hand. "Brooke, step back." Mom pointed at me like she was pointing at a roach. "She's lying. She always lies. She's dramatic. She throws herself around and pretends we hurt her. She's been jealous of Brooke since she was born." The officer didn't even acknowledge her rant. "Harper, do you need medical treatment?" "I already got it from urgent care when none of them helped." Mom gasped like I'd stabbed her. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" The officer cut her off. "Ma'am, we'll speak with you separately." Dad tried to move toward me, but another officer stepped between us. "Sir, stay where you are." Dad's jaw clenched so hard I could hear the grind. Then came the part they didn't expect. Another officer turned to Mom and Dad. "We have a warrant to search the property for evidence." Mom stumbled backward. "A what?" Dad's face went pale. "This is insane!" Brooke snapped. "You can't search my stuff." The officer answered, "We can, and we will." And they did. They found my burned gauze in the trash. They found the pot Brooke used still sitting on the stove with residue dried on the sides. They replayed the audio recordings, Mom calling me a jealous waste, Dad saying, "You're lucky she didn't burn your face," and Brooke laughing, "Next time, I'll make it even." Every word echoed in the living room while my parents froze like mannequins. I didn't cry. Not one tear. Finally, the lead officer straightened. "We are taking statements. Everyone needs to come with us." Mom finally snapped. She lunged toward me, finger in my face. "You ungrateful little snake! You're ruining this family. You'll regret doing this to us." Before she could finish, the officer grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, step back now." She jerked away, screaming, "This is all because you can't accept that Brooke is better than you!" Dad shouted, "Take her instead! She's the unstable one!" Brooke screamed, "She's always been jealous!" I stood there, calm in the center of their chaos. "You're proving every report right now," I said. They froze. The officers began escorting them out one by one. Brooke first, still yelling that she was innocent. Mom next, crying, begging the officers to look at her pretty daughter. She doesn't deserve this. Dad last, swearing he'd sue everyone involved. When the door finally closed behind them, the house went silent for the first time in my life. Not peaceful, just quiet, empty. A neighbor standing outside watched the whole thing. She whispered to me, "It was a long time coming, sweetheart." I nodded. Too long. 1 month later, I wasn't living in that house anymore. I had moved into a small apartment of my own. The burn on my arm was healing. I had a new job with supportive coworkers who noticed my bandage the first day and actually asked if I was okay. Brooke was charged with misdemeanor assault. She cried in court when she saw the pot from the stove in a sealed evidence bag. Mom and Dad had to take mandatory anger management and family violence courses. Their reputations were destroyed in a way no poetic revenge ever could have done. They tried calling me. Mom left voicemails. "Harper, please, we need to talk. Family shouldn't do this." Dad sent a text. "You think you won? You'll always be nothing." Brooke wrote, "You should have died when you were born." I blocked them all, but the final twist came 2 months later, when a social worker called me. "Harper, your parents listed you as a financial reference for a support program. They claimed you would help them since they're struggling." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "They listed who as what?" The social worker chuckled. "I thought so. Your file says you were the victim." I answered calmly, "Tell them I said the same thing they told me for years. They don't deserve good things." The caseworker laughed again. "I'll mark it as denied." I hung up the phone, leaned back on my chair, and exhaled for the first time in my life without a knot in my chest. This was not poetic justice. This was not symbolic. This was not gentle. This was direct, legal, permanent. They burned my arm. I burned down their power. And unlike them, I didn't have to lift a hand to do it. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.